Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. And now that I am back from successfully biking across all of Long Island in 14 hours and 45 minutes, it is time to get back to predicting shit for the 2025-2026 season. And today I am going to be giving you my 16 best bets for this season. It's going to be 8 straight up bets where the odds are basically even, and then 8 kind of long shots where it's at least 7-1. I've dug into the sports books, whether it's FanDuel or DraftKings, not sponsored by either. I only really do futures bets. I don't really like betting on individual games and sweating for 2.5 hours. God bless you if you enjoy that. But I really love the future bets, and I feel like I have cooked up some good ones. So that's what we're doing today. Let's hopefully some of you guys think that I'm making some sense and you end up riding. We'll have updates throughout the season on how these are going. And yeah, let's get into it. And our first one is, and this one kind of blew my mind when I was doing research for this, Dylan Guenther, 30 goals at plus 140 on FanDuel. Only 30 goals. When looking at this guy, 27 goals in 70 games played last year, so he would have cruised to it if he was healthy. His first season in the NHL, 18 goals in 45 games. He's been putting up 32 goal pace the last 2 seasons while only shooting 13.8%. I've hyped up this guy a lot. I think he is going to be one of the best goal scorers in the NHL in 4 to 5 years, and I think next season he has his first 30-goal season, considering he's so young. He's only getting better. Logan Cooley, his main center, is only getting better. They're bringing in JJ Peterka, who right now is slated to play on the same line as them, as well as a great top power play with Mikhail Sergachev and Clayton Keller. This again relies on health, which all these player props will. But even if he plays 75 games, I think he hits 30 goals this year. So the fact that I get him at plus money, I thought that, like, if you told me 30 goals, I would have said minus 120, minus 130. I'd probably put his over under at like 32.5. So plus 140 for 30 goals for Dylan Guenther, who has already proved it, is on a rising team, is going to be playing with some talented guys. That's my first one, and that's maybe the most confident player prop that I am currently looking at. Moving on to a team long shot. The Pittsburgh Penguins, worst record in the NHL, plus 700 on DraftKings. I think the Chicago Blackhawks and San Jose Sharks are most likely going to be worse than the Penguins, but they're like pretty easily the third worst team in the NHL this season, and they have a real possibility. The Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks are trying to be better this year. They're trying to come out of their rebuild. Pittsburgh, they might end up trading 2 of Crosby at this point, Malkin, Carlson, Raquel, and Rust. So yeah, I could easily see them be a high 60-point team. When looking at this goaltending situation, Tristan Jarry is just so up and down throughout the season last year. Shilovs was very good in the AHL, but his NHL numbers to start last year were very concerning. Blomqvist is now hurt. Like, the goaltending's horrible. Carlson and Letang are still like okay, but they're by far their top 2 defensemen ever since they got rid of Marcus Pettersson. The rest of the D-core sucks. They have a good first line. Maybe Koivunen and McGroarty could be something this season and going forward. I think they're going to be good players. But yeah, plus 700. I'd probably have them at like plus 400, plus 500. The fact that they're so far away in terms of odds from the Sharks and the Hawks, who potentially have internal growth to get to around 70-ish points, that's a future that I am definitely have my eyes on. We got 2 packaged into one. One is a straight bet. One is the 7-1 as well. The Carolina Hurricanes President's Trophy is plus 700, and their over-under is only 106.5. When looking at Carolina, this was like their down year last season because they had so much change in terms of guys like Gensel, Pesci, Shea, all leaving Teravainen. They still had 99 points. In the prior 4 seasons, they were all 110-point pace or higher. They're adding Nikolai Ehlers, who's a regular season wagon as long as he can stay healthy. But even if you get 60 to 65 games, that's a great 60 to 65 games of top line production. You're bringing in Nikishin, who is dominant in Russia and could add yet another offensive defenseman to this mix. They really only had like Brett Burns, who's washed up, and Shane Gothisbehere offensively last season. Keandre Miller is going to be a solid 20-ish minute a night guy and could potentially break out. So they're adding those 3 guys, getting rid of Brett Burns for the most part. It's going to come down to the goaltending, whether they can win that President's Trophy, because last year they had an .893 save percentage and they were still a 99-point team. So even if Freddie plays 40 games and can give you a 910, Kachetkov just has a 900, and they get 905 goaltending, they are going to cruise to 110 points. Rod Brindamore has proven that he is a consistent regular season head coach. Last year, so much change, bringing in guys like Sean Walker, Gothisbehere. This year, going to be more consistency, and they're only adding to the mix instead of replacing roles, as well as guys like Jackson Blake and Logan Stankoven taking natural youth steps. Seth Jarvis is still only 23 years old. I'm very high in the Carolina Hurricanes in terms of winning a pretty weak Metro division, 106.5. I think it should be like 108. I think it should be like 109 in President's Trophy, especially now. Although we're all rooting for a speedy recovery, now that Alexander Barkov's not going to be playing in the regular season, I think Florida, in terms of potentially being the next closest team, also the Dallas Stars coming to President's Trophy, but I think the Carolina Hurricanes right now should be the heavy favorite to win the President's Trophy, and plus 700 alongside other teams in that range, I think is a little bit wild. So yeah, over 106.5 and plus 700 to win the President's Trophy. Another one that you guys saw me post about recently, Sam Rinzel is going at around 40 to 50 to 1 to win the Calder. I'm going to keep this short. 5 points in 9 games last season, playing 23 minutes a night when he made the jump from college to the NHL. Demidov is obviously the heavy favorite here, but outside of that, Rinzel, there's a bunch of like guys between like 15 to 25 to 1. Rinzel should be in that mix. I'm not trying to act like he should be 8 to 1, but considering the fact he's going to be on that top power play, considering he might play with Alex Vlasic, he's going to have a huge role. And if Chicago can take a solid step and not be god awful, just like bad 75 points, he's going to be a huge reason why. And we saw Connor Bedard win the Calder Trophy when they absolutely stunk. Not saying he's Connor Bedard, but I think Sam Rinzel at that value is freaking awesome. Another awards one that's a bit of a long shot, but it's definitely gone up in the last couple of days since the Barkov injury. Anze Kopitar to win the Selke at 20 to 1. I don't think that he's going to actually have the on-ice play to be the best defensive forward in the NHL, but I think that these award voters are kind of cornballs at times. So the fact that it's his final season and he has had this reputation of being the second best defensive center of his generation, 1-2 Selkes, Bergeron should have won in 2016, but I could easily see a world where nobody really distinguishes themselves in terms of their defensive play with Barkov out, and Kopitar, who's still been very good the last couple of years, not quite like Selke finalist level, but he has a very good season, puts up 65 to 75 points. And they just say, you know what, Anze Kopitar, you're a legend. We're going to give you another Selke, really get in that rarefied air of a 3-time Selke winner. So at 20 to 1, I think that that's pretty good value. I think it should be like 15 to 1 or 10 to 1. And I definitely could see him taking it home because the Selke is really an award that you got to build that reputation after multiple seasons. So Anze Kopitar at 20 to 1, I think is pretty valuable just when thinking about the voters, not my own personal opinion, but I think the voters will kind of be a little bit clouded with that retirement going down. I got 3 for the Boston Bruins. Bruins over 79.5. Jeremy Swayman over 24.5 wins. And Boston to hit 90 points at plus 320. Everything went wrong with this team. This is another one that I talked about over on my TikTok. Outside of Pasta, everybody had a bad season when looking at Jeremy Swayman, talking about that 24.5 wins. He almost got that number last season, even though he had an .892 save percentage. He is going to be better. It's not like a case where they had this young up-and-coming goaltender that could potentially steal his job. They got freaking Jonas Korpisalo as his backup. He's still going to play 55 games, as well as the fact that McAvoy and Lindholm only combined for 67 games last season. Lindholm, the other Lindholm, Elias Lindholm, is going to be much better. The bottom 6, or like the bottom 9, is pretty horrendous, but I don't think this Boston Bruins team is a bottom 6 to 7 team in the NHL. But when looking at it, I think that they are going to be in the mid to high 80s. Not saying they're a playoff team, but at 90 points, I like that potential of plus 320. I think it's value there. I think people are sleeping on this team. And it feels like we've always been so wrong about the Bruins. The years that we think they're going to fall off, they don't. Like last season, although I didn't like the Lindholm and Zadorov signings, people expect to make the playoffs. Now everybody's really low on them. It seems like a case where they're going to prove us wrong and get somewhat back in the mix. I like the Marco Sturm hire. So yeah, I think that they're going to be in the mix. I don't think that they're significantly worse than like the Buffalo Sabres, Detroit Red Wings in that mid 80s points range. So those are 3 that I kind of like for the Boston Bruins. I'm more confident. I'd probably say in the Jeremy Swayman 24.5, just because again, he's going to play so many games, and with the full training camp, I think he's going to be very good. So those are my 3. I'm high on Boston this year, but not even high for them to be a playoff team. I just don't think they're going to be garbage. So that's where I'm at on the Boston Bruins. Next up, this one isn't much of a surprise. Jason Robertson, 80.5 points. We're taking the over there. Contract year, got disrespected. There were trade talks around him, speculation all summer. Finished the season very, very strong. Now might play a full season with Mikko Rantanen, Rupe Hintz, and on the power play, he gets Wyatt Johnston and Thomas Harley. They're going to be very good in the regular season. He hasn't missed a game the last 3 years as well, so that's also very encouraging. Start of last year was coming off leg surgery, and as a result, he started off pretty slow. I'm pretty high on Jason Robertson. I think he gets at least the mid 80s. And in my player predictions for every single team's leading scorer, I had him at like 96. So I'm very high on Jason Robertson. I didn't look at what the 90-point total odds would be. I guess it's probably like plus 180. I'd sprinkle that as well, maybe a little bit. But yeah, I'm very high on Jason Robertson in a contract year. We're taking an under for the San Jose Sharks, 72.5 points. 52 points last season, and they traded Wallman, they traded Granlund, they traded Blackwood, they added Klingberg, Skinner, Orlov, Leddy, Kurashev, and Nedeljkovic. I don't see a 21-point increase. I know that their three young forwards are going to be better, don't get me wrong, but it's really just going to come down to whether or not Misa can be a 50 to 60-point second-line center. Can Askarov play 40 games and post like a 900? I think that's high expectations for those guys. The defense core is without a doubt the worst in the NHL. And when looking at the Western Conference, usually you have the cycle of teams coming out of rebuilds, teams going into rebuilds. That's not really the case. Every single team in the Western Conference is trying to win right now or trying to come out of a rebuild outside of the Calgary Flames, whatever the fuck they're doing. But there's just not a lot of points that I see on the board for them to take a 21-point increase, if that makes sense. So I'm not saying that they're going to be like in the 50s. I think they're going to be in like the mid 60s, and that would be a big jump. And I think the following year, that's when they're really going to start trying to add serious pieces to win now, not win now, but try to get in the mix. That just didn't happen this summer. So when I saw their number was 20 and a half points higher than last season, I was a little bit skeptical. Someone's going to have to stink, and I think right now it's going to be the San Jose Sharks. But with that said, one of my player props that I love is Macklin Celebrini over 67.5 points. Erik Karlsson had 100 points when the San Jose Sharks were a 60-point team. So don't think that just because I'm taking a player's over that the team still can't stink, by the way. But when looking at Celebrini over 67.5, he put up 74-point pace last year. Like, what are we doing? I know he got hurt to start the season, but yeah, he put up 63 points in 70 games. That top line, although the rest of the team I don't think is very good, the top line's either going to be like him, Will Smith, Eklund, or Toffoli. That's going to be a pretty solid top line. The power play, John Klingberg can manage a power play. Maybe even Shrett might be a problem defensively, but he's going to be on a good line. He's going to be on a good top power play. His micro stats were amazing last year, so I think he's probably going to be going for high 70s, low 80s. I looked on DraftKings. He's 10-1 to hit 90 points. I don't even hate that. That might be crazy. But Celebrini over 67.5. I don't think I'm a hype beast for saying that. If I was like hammer and over 75, I might think that that's a little bit bold. But I think everybody should be betting this because unless he gets injured, I just don't see him taking a step back with so many young pieces in San Jose, so many young forwards that are also only going to get better. We're moving on to a long shot with the next one. Linus Ullmark, 50-1 to win the Vezina Trophy. He's tied with Joseph Woll, a guy that has won. Ullmark is a guy that has won the Vezina before. Just at the bottom of these odds, I was shocked by it. When looking at him in Ottawa last season, a solid 909. He did get hurt, but then he had 5 straight years of at least a 915, whether it was in Buffalo, whether it was in Boston. The Sens defense core looks really, really good this season as long as they can stay healthy. They had some injuries last year, and they added Jordan Spence and got rid of Travis Hamonic. Their analytics were pretty solid as well. Maybe there's some thought process that Merlainen might play like high 20s, low 30s games, but I still think Ullmark's going to play around like mid 50s games on a team that's probably going to be in the playoffs, at least like in the mix. So when looking at Ullmark, he's way too low in terms of these odds. I don't know if the books are just against the Ottawa Senators and I'm being biased for the Ottawa Senators, but yeah, for a guy that has won it before, I'm not going to say the Ottawa Senators this year, the 2023 Boston Bruins, but yeah, he should definitely be like 30-1 or something like that. And there's few consistent goalies in every single regular season like Linus Ullmark. He's not at a bad season like in his career when he plays more than 30 games. So I'm definitely throwing like $10 on that. 50-1 is pretty crazy. Next up, we got another team over under. The Utah Mammoth, 91.5 points. I spoke on it with Dylan Guenther, but I think him and Cooley are going to take steps. They were an 89-point team last year, and they're adding JJ Peterka. Marino and Dursey were out for a large portion of last season. It's going to come down to the goaltending, but this team was very, very good analytically last year at 5-on-5 with the 5th best expected goals percentage. I think Armstrong's going to have the green light to be aggressive this season in terms of trading Ryan Smith's a very hungry owner that wants to see on ice success. And they have 3 second-round picks and 2 third-round picks to potentially trade at this year's deadline. It's going to be a war in the Central Division, but I think the Mammoth are a team that takes a 5 to 10 point jump and maybe potentially makes the playoffs. I'm not saying they're a lock, but at 91.5, you had to get to what, 96, 97 points last year. But I think that they're going to take at least a 3-point jump and end up making the playoffs next season. We're going back to an awards pick. Matthews, plus 1,900 to win the Hart. I'm not saying he's for sure my pick right now, but the fact that the top 5 guys are so far ahead of him, like Kaprizov's at 11 to 1, Matthews at 19 to 1, I think is a little bit crazy. I think there's a lot of value in that. He should definitely be bunched in with those guys. And he has a very good opportunity in terms of the media narrative to potentially win it, if that makes sense. Marner leaving, if he still goes for it like he did in 2021, 2022, 2024, 60-ish goal pace, 100-ish point pace, great defensive numbers alongside guys like Michelli and Nysen on that very good power play. I think he's going to have all the momentum to potentially win a Hart Trophy. So I think at 19 to 1, alongside Connor Hellebuyck, who's also there, he's not going back-to-back Hart Trophies. You kidding me? I think that that's a little bit wild, and there's definitely some value there. Austin Matthews, 19 to 1. And then lastly, maybe a little bit of a biased pick here, Leo Carlson, 70 points, 10 to 1. When looking at this, we talked about it when we gave out my predictions for every single team's leading scorer. 29 points in his final 31 games. The power play is only going to be better. It was worse than the NHL at like 11% last year. Right now, he's slated to play alongside Chris Kreider, who I think will be a really good fit for him, as well as Troy Terry, who previously has scored 70 points. He is the franchise cornerstone piece, and as a result, I think they're going to give him every single opportunity. I think he's going to play 18, 19 minutes a night, and I think the Anaheim Ducks are going to be a fun team offensively. DraftKings did not have the 60-point odds. If it's at 10 to 1 for 70 points, I assume 60 points, if you have that on your book, is probably something like plus 300, plus 400. I'd also hammer that, but I think that there's real breakout potential. I don't know what exactly his pure over-under is, but I'd obviously hammer it. It's probably like 54, 55 or something like that. I just see a real breakout for Leo Carlson, considering the coaching change, considering the line mates that he could potentially have, and the power play being much, much better. But here's the recap of our long shot bets. Fox Norris 35 to 1 if we hit that. Holy shit. And then we got the more so even ones. Again, Dylan Guenther is plus 140. He's not even at 30 goals. Nuts in my opinion. But yeah, that's it. Let me know in the comments. Are you planning on tailing any of these bets? It's going to be fun. We'll probably update it throughout the season like I did with my punishments. Like right now, what the percentages of these bets hitting. Bet responsibly, of course. That's why I do the futures bets, just because like it's fun to track throughout the season instead of like $500. I would never bet $500 to begin with, but $500 on like a 3-hour event, that's too much for me. That gets my heart racing too much. But the future bets are fun because it gives you storylines to follow throughout the season. Some of those might be featured on my season-long punishments that I'm probably going to be dropping either Sunday or Monday of next week. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about some of these bets? Bet responsibly, as I said before. And yeah, hopefully we make some money this season. I'll be seeing the next one. Peace.